All right, let's get the very latest now from Israel. Our correspondent Sarah Coates joins us from Tel Aviv. Sarah, a very good afternoon to you. Talk to us about how this deal has been structured, essentially. We know that the truce is expected to come into effect on Sunday, January 19, and it's spread over 3 months. What are the details you can share, including, of course, the release of those captured on either side?
I'll run you through a statement from the Prime Minister's office. Firstly, it says that Hamas is now demanding that it determine the identity of these Palestinian prisoners that are set to be released, with Benjamin Netanyahu instructing his team to reject this demand. You did mention there that Hamas denies this accusation by the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. But what this has really done is pushed back this cabinet vote that was supposed to happen already a matter of hours ago, where the Israeli cabinet would vote on this deal and decide whether or not to pass it. Now, it was expected to be passed by a majority of votes and, as you said, would come into effect on Sunday. But what we can expect to see now is, if this vote doesn't happen very, very soon, that this for this ceasefire to actually come into play Sunday could actually be pushed back. So this is causing a lot of angst, really, among the family members of these hostages that were supposed to be released on Sunday. They don't know when they'll see their loved ones. And of course, we do need to also mention the people in the Gaza Strip who so desperately need reprieve from this 15-month war. They were really hoping that this ceasefire would come into play on Sunday. Still no clarification on actually when this will happen. It may actually still be on Sunday, but all of this remains unclear.
And I mean, Sarah, just on that point about the, the cabinet vote and the, implications of that being pushed back or not actually being heard and tabled as soon as possible, especially when we're speaking about that January 19 deadline of this ceasefire. As we speak about those implications, I mean, we already know that just moments before that announcement of a ceasefire was even made, the Israeli military had already stepped up attacks on Gaza. But what are we looking at when we talk about implications if this agreement in cabinet in Israel doesn't go through?
Well, it means that before this ceasefire is implemented, this war will continue. We did hear from the Prime Minister of Qatar last night when he delivered that press conference announcing that this ceasefire had been reached. He said that he was calling for calm, calling for quiet, calling for no Israeli military operations on the ground in that period between the announcement and when this ceasefire would come into play. But that is certainly not what is being seen on the ground. We are hearing from many Palestinian sources in Gaza that attacks have actually been stepped up. We do know that there have been bombings in Gaza City, bombings in the centre, and also bombings in the south of the Gaza Strip. So certainly this is a major concern for the Palestinians in the Strip who, as I mentioned, really need some reprieve. And it also comes as humanitarian aid is currently being stockpiled in both Jordan and in Egypt, waiting for the Rafah border crossing to reopen to get this vital humanitarian aid into the Strip after 15 months of fighting.
We know, of course, that announcement also prompted, many celebrations, particularly in Gaza. Just talk to us about the reaction on the ground to this long overdue ceasefire from ordinary people, of course, that have been wanting this particular conflict to come to an end.
Certainly, when this announcement was made late last night, we saw celebrations right across the Strip, especially in the centre and in the south. There were people dancing in the streets amid devastation caused by this 15-month war that's claimed the lives of more than 46,000 people in the Gaza Strip. So certainly this announcement, or this hiccup, we could call it, will be tempering these sort of reactions on the ground. And also here in Israel, we do need to remember that there are these family members of hostages who are desperately awaiting their loved ones to come home. And they're really holding out hope that this ceasefire does happen and that they'll finally be able to see their loved ones. But on the other hand, there's a real concern that potentially something like this may happen and this ceasefire may not actually come into play. But this is still, of course, early days. Negotiators and mediators say they are trying to iron out any of these difficulties, and we will, of course, continue to bring you updates as they come to hand.
Sarah, thank you so much for that update. Correspondent Sarah Coates joining us there from Tel Aviv for us. Of course, we continue to monitor this particular situation and get reaction to this ceasefire.